Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer for this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. Oh, I need my glasses. Um, so this is your weekly astrology forecast, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about Venus retrograde, um, and Mercury entering into the sign of Aries. I also want to let you guys know that if you haven't read the article I did over Venus retrograde, I'm going to post it down below for you to read that. And then also, I did a video a while back, and I'll post a link to that in the description as well if you're wanting to know more about this. The other thing that I want to say is that be on the lookout later this week if you have subscribed on my website to be notified. I am going to start my eclipse special, and there will be information about what that entails coming up later this week for you all. So, without further ado, let me share the chart with you for this week, or one of them, and let's talk about this. So Venus is retrograde, and Mercury is now in the sign of Aries and is approaching Venus, and both are ruled by Mars and Cancer. And, Mercury is the ruler of this South Node in Virgo and is also the ruler of this Jupiter in Gemini. Another notable mention is that the North Node of Venus is up here and is conjunct Chiron. Everything is ruled by this Mars in Cancer. So even that there's a lot to unpack. So let's talk about this. It's good to know that, Mars is trining Vesta and is sextile to this north node of Venus and Chiron, which is some really beautiful energy, quite frankly. So let's unpack this here. So, I feel like I've talked in that other video extensively about Venus retrograde and what this is bringing up for us. And Mercury is in its pre-shadow period before it uh it goes retrograde on March 15th at 9 degrees Aries, and then it won't move direct until April 7th at 26 degrees Pisces. So Venus and Mercury are doing a dance with each other. They're both retrograde. They're going to be both retrograde at the same time starting next week. And it's impactful, especially because Mercury is that ruler of that South Node in Virgo. So it's bringing up a lot of older dynamics for us in order to improve through making new choices, revisiting different themes in our life. And it's interesting too, because this is going to be going on during the eclipse, which I will talk about next week. So just as a recap, Venus retrograde is this time where we are reviewing, revisiting, re-experiencing key dynamics around how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to others in order to resolve, um, in order to speed up our evolutionary growth through this revisiting or redoing of these dynamics. So over the next 6 weeks throughout this Venus retrograde cycle, we could really be having, people from our past re-enter into our lives, or even if they don't physically re-enter into our lives, or, we're not talking to them, it could be where we're thinking about them and really needing to reflect on our prior relational dynamics. And then there's this dynamic of, on the one hand, Venus is in Aries and stationed retrograde in the sign of Aries at 10 degrees. So there's something wanting to be initiated, but yet we're having to review uh, key themes in our lives in order for us to resolve And then once Venus stations direct and moves back into Aries, it'll feel like, we can finally start to create some momentum around this. So I find it interesting too because Venus has been the ruler of the nodes for, you know, a long, she was the ruler of the nodes for a long time. Um, back in January when the nodes ingressed into Virgo Pisces, right before that, she was the ruler of the South node, in Libra. And then before that, Venus was the ruler of the North node in Taurus. So there's this continuation of a theme going on dealing with our uh, one-on-one relationships with others. So it started off, North node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio, where we were revisiting these key themes of a scorpionic nature in our lives in order to make new choices around how we relate to ourselves when that North Node was in Taurus. And then the nodes, moved into South Node in Libra, North Node in Aries. And then for 18 months, we were revisiting key themes within our one-on-one relationships with others, where we were looking at themes of how we listen to others, how we listen to ourselves. Are we instilling the values that we were learning, uh, that we came into contact with through the nodal cycle just before that? How are you maintaining your freedom, your independence, your autonomy during the time that the North Node was in Aries, South Node was in Libra? I went over it extensively throughout those years. And now with the South Node in Virgo, North Node in Pisces, it's giving us this opportunity to really improve upon the areas of our life where we find our natal Mercury. But the key with all of this is that the North Node, the transiting North Node in Pisces is ruled by Neptune. It's ruled, you need to look at where your natal Neptune is. Neptune is that higher octave of Venus. And so now we're having Venus retrograde starting in Aries with the higher octave of her conjunct the North Node in Pisces. So what is this reflecting? Um, it's going to be very individualistic for each one of us, but it is truly about taking all that we've been learning the last, 5-ish years, 4.5 years, and really, uh, on the one hand, throughout this Venus retrograde cycle, revisiting key dynamics. That way we can really improve upon what it is we've been working on, looking at our types of thinking around our relational dynamics, the ways in which we express ourselves through Mercury, our capabilities around how we conversate, or where there's limited thinking that we're needing to purge or purify, and then also needing to tap into that higher octave of Venus through Neptune sitting on that North Node, in order to relate to ourselves in a different way. It's another layer of this onion being peeled back that has been going on for years now. And so this is really when we get down to brass tacks with Venus entering her retrograde cycle, being ruled by Mars and Cancer. It's this time period to revisit our own emotional dynamics and how that correlates to our thinking and our expression, and where it is that we're needing to have discernment around how we give to others and how we give to ourselves. And are you able to listen to yourself and what that looks like for each one of us? This can be where for some people there's more of a spiritual quality of where we've really been transforming our inner relationship to self, Uranus and Taurus, through liberating from where we've over-identified with values that have been conditioned, or the structures, how we've structured our relationships, our relationship to self, our relationship to others. And now it's really asking for us to, before we have this true birthing of a new way of relating to ourselves, that there's still some emotional dynamics that are needing to be healed at a soul level. And that we can be coming face to face with different aspects of our relationships where we're needing to tap into that higher octave, being Neptune and Pisces, in order to really um, embark on this healing journey of our inner relationship to self and the healing journey of our relationships with others. This can look at us confronting where we might have been overly attached or identified with how we emotionally nurture others, um, to the detriment of ourselves, and needing to hold ourselves accountable and make new choices in order to resolve long-standing dynamics in this area. That can look like, I've been giving and giving and giving, and this just isn't working. Our relationships, not for everyone, but for some, it's where we can come face to face with the need to resolve a dynamic by letting go, by surrendering, and then understanding that that could actually be a supreme form of giving, Neptune and Pisces, where the best way to understand this is, has someone been trying to help themselves, or are they dependent upon you helping them? What does that feel like? Is there anger coming up for you? Do you feel like you have been going against your own boundaries or abandoning yourself in order to help someone else out? What are the emotional dynamics coming up? How can you not only honor yourself, but honor someone else's evolutionary journey? uh, Dealing with this dynamic? Where can you be giving that supreme form of giving? And the supreme form of giving is where we can be appearing to withhold giving. Okay. And, you know, we just did this introductory class of Venus and sexuality for the Evolutionary Astrology Association. And we were talking about some of this. And I love one thing that Kristen Fontana said, is she was like, when we give that supreme form of giving, we can be afraid that we're not doing the right thing. But whenever we're really tapping into that, we will be immediately shown that we did the right thing. And I was reflecting on this personally, and then where I've seen other people do this, and you get an immediate um, validation from source, from the universe, that that was the right thing to do. And so there can be an immense amount of discernment that is wanting to happen around this time whenever it comes to our relationships with others, where we're revisiting key dynamics. It can also feel like there's this test going on. And the test is, are you going to be who you once were, or are you going to say, that is not who I am anymore? And it's about proving to yourself through your own choices that you are different, that you are not the same person. And that is where one can really feel a more spiritual quality, feel way more connected, um, and to experience the surrendering Pisces, all the Pisces energy of not holding on to the past dynamics anymore, of being able to move forwards through healing these dynamics by making different choices. Mars in Cancer, Venus in Aries. Um, that way, one can truly promote healing, not just for themselves, but for others as well, even if it is appearing that you are withholding giving. It's about helping others on their own evolutionary journey by allowing them to blaze their own trail instead of creating dependencies. So, this is also a prolific time with Mars in Cancer ruling this Venus retrograde, where we can be re experiencing these key dynamics around where we have sought external emotional validation and the need to be responsible and making the correct choice to become secure within. And as we do so, it helps us to continue to truly transform our inner relationship to self. So, for some people, that can be letting go of old relationships that are not conducive to both people's growth anymore, that it has exhausted that desire of being together. And knowing when and discerning Virgo Pisces to surrender, to not hold on just because it's known and familiar. And so it can feel like for some, there's this two steps forward, one step back. I'm ripping the band-aid off. I'm making this new choice. And all of a sudden, it induces an immense amount of insecurity within because it's new. And you're stepping outside of the status quo of the known and the familiar. And so the key is to not backslide into the past ways of becoming secure, but to really champion for oneself from within and become secure from within. And you will see, whenever it's the right choice, that you will be shown that you did the right thing with how you're navigating this. But it can be scary because it's different. You know, you've gotten used to upholding or maintaining a certain dynamic. So there's a lot to be said about this. And then the other thing that I want to speak to is, Mars is sextile that Chiron that is conjunct the North Node of Venus. So this is where we have this opportunity to really um, change our awareness around old wounds of not making correct choices, Aries, not acting on certain desires because it's scary or feeling like we need to prove ourself and our worth to different people. And this is really about being the courageous warrior within in order to emotionally nurture and validate oneself without anyone else doing that for us. It's about truly re-experiencing these key dynamics in order to transform our awareness around wounds where we felt insecure and we stayed and we did something that could have been abandoning ourselves, or really it could have been where we were creating dependencies or enabling others. And so this is up for grabs during this time, and it's, starting to be revealed during this week. And I love that Mars is trining Vesta in Scorpio. It's in this beautiful water trine. It's in a disseminating trine. And Vesta is ruled by Pluto in Aquarius, which is ruled by that Uranus and Taurus. And Vesta is really about finding the sacredness within oneself and keeping that inner sacred flame alive, of where one doesn't have to create dependencies or entanglements with others to be secure. It's where one is finding a spiritual quality around reconnecting from within in order to have a creative regeneration of feeling secure within oneself. And so Mars trining this Vesta, it's teaching us a lot about the emotional body and our states of inner security. And with Vesta being ruled by Pluto and Aquarius, it's where we're having these instances come up where we can really truly observe our own emotional, psychological tendencies of when we insecure and how we react to that insecurity. And it's truly asking for us to liberate from the dynamic of any type of dependencies that could have even felt like they were hidden or we didn't realize that they were going on. And so but with that trine, it's like where we can have a deep understanding about this. It doesn't have to be so hard or confrontational on a like, oh my goodness, this just hit me like a pound of bricks in the face. It's more of, oh, I see that this is a pattern and I'm observing this within myself. And there are other ways to go about doing this through liberating from these dynamics. And through that, we get to transform. It's also Scorpio is where we get to confront ourselves around, is this who I really want to be? Is this who I am? Or this is absolutely who I can no longer be. And this is not who I am at all. And with Uranus and Taurus, really being pulled into this, and that's ruled by Venus retrograde, these are the areas where we can um truly start to relate to ourselves in a very different way through confronting, this is not who I want to be. And whenever we are honest with ourselves about this, we get to transform ourselves from the inside out and become more emotionally grounded, more emotionally self-reliant. Um, and we are called to really listen to ourselves during this time about this is the thing that I need to do, and to not get into Virgo South Node of I'm going to deny this or make an excuse for it, though. It's asking for us to make a new choice around cultivating forgiveness, compassion, love, in order to heal our self-worth, in order to heal long-standing dynamics within our relationships with others, and to really liberate from the past in order to experience ourselves in a more natural way. And with Mercury entering into an Aries and now being the ruler, it's been the ruler of the South Node in Virgo, and it's the ruler of Jupiter and Gemini, but now it's in Aries. It's ruled by that Mars in Cancer. So this is where we can really be cultivating new emotional awareness and learning more about it, seeing with Mars ruling it, and where it can help us to understand issues around our choice making and needing to purge the past. I've lacked boundaries because I felt guilt, Virgo, when I said no. And so it's calling for us to find security within ourselves, within our own choice making, and to be responsible with that. Um, and as Mars enters its retrograde period next week and it's there with Venus, this is where we can really have these conversations with other people, or information can be revealed to us, where we're really needing to listen to ourselves about how to make a correct choice and to be responsible. Um, and it can induce insecurity because we can know what we need to do, but it can be scary to do it. And that really is the teaching there of, if you're transforming your self-esteem, the ways in which you relate to yourself, that means you're going to have to listen to yourself, Taurus, and to discern a correct course of action, even if it's appearing to not be giving to someone else and really you are. So understanding your intentions behind withdrawing the appearance of giving. It's wanting us to purge the past of our types of thinking that keep us stuck in a perpetual state of inaction. Um, and it's wanting us to cultivate a resilience to honoring our choices. And with Jupiter and Gemini being ruled by Mercury and Aries, this can be where we are expanding upon our own inner knowledge around our emotional dynamics. And it's another layer of this onion where we're through conversations with others as well, Mercury, Gemini, we are really getting to understand what is going on inside of us. Venus retrograde there with Mercury approaching it. It's like where we're getting a mirror um, around what we attract. Venus is about what we attract. And Venus retrograde is asking for us to relate to ourselves differently so we attract things and people and situations that are really in alignment with where we are in the present moment and not where we have been in the past. So Mercury and Aries can really be teaching us around these dynamics. There's a learning, an information that's going on. And then when Mercury enters its retrogradation, which I will be talking about more next week, we're really called to rely on our instinct, Aries, and our intuition, and not necessarily the ways in which we can logically convince ourselves of something. It's about tapping into what is our instinct and our intuition saying about these dynamics that are going on. The other thing that I do want to say with this week is on the 1st, March 1st, the asteroid Lucifer entered the sign of Cancer. This dynamic can really magnify intense emotional responses where we're the most emotionally vulnerable or the most emotionally weak. But if we utilize this and we see that, oh my gosh, Venus retrograde, I'm having these instances that I'm reviewing and revisiting within my relationships with others. Mars is in Cancer, it's the ruler of that Venus, and there are things being triggered. You really want to pay attention to what is your emotional response, Lucifer and Cancer. Is it being magnified? Is it rooted in the actual truth? Or is there something going on that's trying to sway you from the path that you're really trying to go on? There is so much within the energetics of liberation from the past and also metamorphosizing how we relate to ourselves. And Lucifer and Cancer, if we're not using it as the bearer of light, we can get trapped in emotional reactions. Um, and so there's this call to really consciously utilize this through observing our emotional dynamics during this time and to be responsible with our choices. You know, if that means before I respond verbally, Mercury and Aries, to not do it in anger, to do it in love. So maybe taking a break or counting to 10 before I respond. Um, but with Lucifer and Cancer, it can be the bearer of light on these deep rooted emotional dynamics of where we have experienced deep insecurity and are really needing to learn how to nurture ourselves within. And the best way to understand how we are called to nurture ourselves within is to look at your own natal moon by house, by sign, and what it's aspecting. It can also show you where you could be influenced through these emotional dynamics that become magnified. And so truly you utilizing this as the bearer of light in order to purge these dynamics instead of getting back or backsliding into old emotional dynamics and habituations. So the other thing that I do want to talk about is today on the 3rd, Mercury is square to Lucifer. So if you have conversations with people and they ignite a magnification of your emotional dynamics, to remember to pause, to respond and not react, to be responsible, because this can trigger anger or volatility, and it can induce a reaction, Aries, and we want to make sure that we don't say something that could be harmful or hurtful to others during this time. So really being responsible with with the ways in which we respond to others through how we express ourselves. And Mercury is going to be squaring this Lucifer for the next couple of days. So it's imperative for us to really stop and pause before we respond through how we communicate or how we express. Um, because we don't want to induce any type of guilt dynamics that where we reflect and we're like, man, I should have responded in this way instead of that way. Like, truly consciously work with this dynamic when you're conversing with other people, because it can strike an emotional chord within. Um, it could be a trigger. It could be, someone is bringing up the past where it's there's just a deep need, especially Mercury is going to be sextiling Pluto. It's already starting this sextile with Pluto, where we don't want to be projecting Aquarius, our own traumatic experiences of the past onto other people whenever we're communicating with them. So if something does get triggered through conversing with someone, take it as an opportunity to really observe where is this reaction coming from? What emotional dynamics is this triggering? Because it can be a catalyst for us to see where we relate to others, how we're relating to ourselves, and if we're being held hostage to the over-identification of our fear around our past traumatic experiences. And this actually could really help us to liberate from that type of thinking later on in the week. That is perfected, on the 4th. So this is really a lot of the dynamics going on this week. I'm going to try to have the eclipse video come out before next week. Um, I'm pretty busy with clients this week and catching up on um, doing some of my pre-recordings, but I do want you guys to be on the lookout for that. Um, and I just want to say before I leave this video is that we are really called to tap into a higher loving um, that is rooted in compassion, forgiveness, and empathy. That doesn't mean that if something comes up with other people, that we sweep it under the rug. It means that our security lies within ourselves and not within others. And there's this deep lesson that is trying to teach us that right now. Um, so we can throw off the past dynamics. And so I just want you to think about everything that you have been learning and discovering about yourself over the past 40-ish months in time, because it can be coming up and surfacing at this moment in time to give us these soul tests and to also confront us with other layers of how we're needing to change the ways in which we relate. And ultimately, it's about healing dynamics and becoming truly secure within ourselves on an emotional level. And that can be through cultivating a deeper relationship with source during this time. I don't know what I don't know what to do, but I'm going to trust and have faith that the answer is going to come to me through my intuition if I am patient and I sit with this. That way, I know how to respond in a correct and responsible way. So, this week. It's really introducing us to a lot of these energies, and we're revisiting these experiences. And it ultimately gives us an opportunity to heal these very long-standing dynamics. At the end of this Venus retrograde cycle, it can feel like we're being reborn in a certain way. Right now, with Venus and Aries, it can feel a little bit like an identity crisis, or like, I know this is the way that I want to conduct myself and how I want to be, but then we can get these burst of emotional triggers. And so it's truly wanting us to learn how to cultivate discernment um, and higher love around how we communicate and how we relate to others during this time. So I hope that you all have a beautiful week. Consciously utilize this energy. If something gets triggered, view it as an opportunity to understand yourself more deeply, um, and allow yourselves to feel whatever comes up. Your emotions do not have to run the gamut, though. This is where that lesson in response and reaction comes into play. Um, and there's a cultivation of wisdom and emotional maturation underway right now with all of these energies. And there's a purging of past dynamics through us truly improving upon how we have structured our consciousness, what we've taken in as values, what we have learned around our communication or our self-talk and everything. So it's truly about just this need to truly, truly, truly pay attention to all of this and to stop and pause if necessary before you respond. So have a good week. We are gearing up for these eclipses, and I will totally do a deep dive into those coming up soon. And remember, trust your instinct, trust your intuition, and you can't go wrong if you're sincere within it and it's rooted in love, and you being true to yourself. Until then, have a great week.